I never expected my shyness to fade after one unforgettable encounter with a millionaire doctor. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air had a weight to it, damp and heavy like the storm looming overhead. My heart raced as I stood outside the hospital, nerves coiling tighter within me. I was about to meet him, Dr. Ethan Davenport, the most talked about doctor in the city. They said he was brilliant and compassionate, a kind of modern-day superhero in a pristine white coat. But to me, he was a million things I could never be. I hadn't scheduled an appointment. No, I lurked in the shadows, my trembling hands clutching my phone, too scared to speak. The soft hum of a nearby street vendor did nothing to calm my nerves. Each colorful candy displayed seemed unreal, like a cruel joke mocking my dull life. My best friend, Mia, had been with me just days before, insisting I take this chance to break out of my shell. "You'll never know unless you try," she urged, her voice ringing in my ears as I replayed her encouragement. Suddenly, the door swung open. There he was, golden hair tousled, sky blue eyes catching the light. Dr. Davenport was more striking in person. He had this enigmatic aura about him, like he held secrets that could change lives. Just standing there, he radiated warmth. I noticed how his brows furrowed slightly, a reflection of concern, and my heart squeezed painfully. Why was I so drawn to him? My skin prickled, and a small voice inside me begged for courage. I took a step forward, but my body betrayed me, frozen by the magnitude of my shyness. It felt like all those times I stood silently in the back of the room, longing to join but always held back by fear. What could I possibly say? Then it happened. A child rushed past me, laughter trailing behind. I turned, my breath hitching. I couldn't look away as Dr. Davenport knelt down to speak to her. His kindness undid me. I felt an inexplicable pull, a tiny spark of hope igniting deep within. Surely he saw the potential around him. Why couldn't he see it in me? Before I knew it, he stood back, scanning the crowd, his gaze landing on me. My heart thundered. Time slowed. The bustling sounds around us faded. All I heard was my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Excuse me," he called, his voice rich and soothing, breaking through my thoughts. "Are you lost?" I blinked. Was he talking to me? My cheeks flushed. Every instinct screamed to run or hide, but something else pushed me forward. I fumbled, words spinning away like leaves in the wind. This was my chance. And just as I gathered the courage to speak, I heard whispers. A group nearby murmured, "He only helps the wealthy." What would she know? Just another nobody. The knot tightened in my throat, and I felt small, invisible in the face of such judgment. As Dr. Davenport took a step closer, concern etched on his face, I hesitated. Those words slashed through my spirit. Maybe they were right. Did I have anything valuable to say? Then he smiled gently, as if he sensed my struggle. It was the kind of smile that held promises, a reassurance that maybe I didn't need to fight this battle alone. And just like that, everything shifted. My shyness felt different, like a word transformed by light. But did I have the strength to embrace this change? Did I dare to step into the light of his world? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next day dawned gray and drizzly, mirroring the turmoil inside me. Flickers of sunlight dared to break through the clouds, but I felt lost in shadows, torn between my hesitations and the unexpected connection I had felt with Dr. Ethan Davenport. The feelings that surged within me were new and terrifying. What if my yearning for confidence was never meant to be? Perhaps this encounter had merely been a fleeting moment of grace that I could never recapture. Mia buzzed with excitement as we walked to our favorite cafe after a long week at work. "You should go back," she insisted, cradling her coffee like a beacon of warmth. "Talk to him. Just be yourself." But what did that even mean for someone like me? I was merely a cog in the machine, no better than the faces that passed me by each day. Yeah, but what if he realizes I'm a nobody? I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Those people yesterday weren't wrong. I don't belong in his world. Mia stopped, placing her hands on my shoulders so I couldn't turn away from her penetrating gaze. You need to stop thinking like that. Everyone has a place in this world, including you. Just because you don't wear a lab coat doesn't mean you're any less worthy. Her words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into deep waters. I took a shaky breath, the weight of my self-doubt feeling heavier than ever. What if he doesn't want me there? Then you'll never know. But if you go back, if you speak to him, at least you'll have tried. Just then, a sharp honk shattered my thoughts as a delivery truck rattled by, splashing puddles everywhere. I stumbled back, half laughing, half yelling an apology at Mia. As I regained my footing, a sense of clarity surged through me. For the first time that day, a fleeting thought emerged: what if showing up was the only way to find my new story? The next afternoon, standing outside the hospital, the storm clouds dissipated, revealing a clear blue sky. My heart raced at the prospect of seeing Dr. Davenport again. Gathering my courage, I gently pushed open the glass doors and stepped inside. The bustling sounds of patients and medical staff greeted me, each sound a reminder that I was standing at the threshold of change. I didn't linger at the entrance this time. Each step toward the waiting area was weighed down by hope and fear. The soft hum of conversation faded as I spotted him across the room. There he was, laughing with a nurse, his demeanor instantly lighting up the sterile atmosphere. That infectious joy radiated like the sun, and I felt myself drawn to him as if something inside me was reaching out, desperate to connect. As I approached, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. What would I say? Just as the hesitation began to claw at me, the nurse waved goodbye and spotted me. "Hey, you're back," she said, her cheeriness like a warm embrace. "You must be brave. Dr. Davenport rarely gets visitors outside work hours." I blinked, taken aback. I wanted to see if he was around. "Hold on," she said, and in a way I hadn't expected, she turned and called out to him. "Ethan! You have a visitor." Dr. Davenport turned, his blue eyes locking onto mine. A moment of surprise flickered across his face, warming the chill in my bones. "You came," he said, a gentle smile emerging that seemed to peel away layers of insecurity I had built. "I did," I managed to say, stepping closer, my heart racing. "I figured I'd take your advice, to find my way." "Finding your way is brave," he said, his voice dipping low, enveloping me in sincerity. "You took the first step, and that's the hardest part." Before I could respond, a harsh cough rang out from across the room, pulling our attention from the tender moment. An elderly man sitting nearby struggled to catch his breath. The nurse rushed to his side, shaking off her laughter, her expression immediately turning serious. "We've got this," she declared, but the urgency spurred an unsettling wave of worry in my chest. "Excuse me," Dr. Davenport said, his demeanor shifting into professional mode as he rushed toward the man. I watched, entranced but anxious. The room buzzed, and patients had begun to stir, some whispering words of concern as they saw the commotion unfold. I stood there, torn between shadows of doubt and flickers of hope. Here was a man who could save lives, yet here I stood, unable to break through my own barriers. Just as I took a step closer, a voice cut through the thickening tension, a voice charged with bitterness from the group I had overheard yesterday. "What's a nobody like her doing here?" one taunted. The echo of their words pierced through the atmosphere, crashing into my resolve. Just as I had thought I might begin to connect, I felt the sharp sting of judgment wrap around me once again. But deep down, something shifted, a resolve I didn't know I had. I couldn't let them make me small again. A deep breath filled my lungs as I switched my gaze back to Dr. Davenport, desperate to see the compassion I had glimpsed moments before. And at that instant, I saw the warmth, the drive, a silent invitation hidden in his worried expression. Whatever happened next, I knew then that I had a choice. I could either fade back into the shadows or stand firm, seeking the light I yearned for. As I made my way to his side, anxiety bloomed within, but alongside it, an ember of hope. Little did I know, This moment would spark a chain of events that would bind my story to his more than I could ever have imagined. Then came the news, an unexpected twist that jolted my heart. The elderly man, a known philanthropist, lay at the center of controversy surrounding the hospital, and with his health wavering, an unthinkable dilemma was on the horizon. Just as I processed the weight of this revelation, a voice rang out from the shadows I hadn't expected to hear again. "You've got to get away from here before it's too late." Who would say such a thing? Whose words would throw my entire world into question again? In a swirl of faces and emotions, I stood. The question loomed, paralyzing beneath the weight of uncertainty: who was really trying to protect me, and what had I walked into? The uncertainty clung to the air like the promise of rain, dampening the hopeful flicker I had felt only moments before. My heart beat a frantic rhythm as I turned to face the direction of the voice that had disrupted the fragile bubble of connection I had shared with Dr. Davenport. Through the gathering crowd, I spotted her, an older woman with sharp features and a determined glint in her eye. "What do you mean?" I stammered, confusion mixing with curiosity. There was something both enticing and foreboding in the way she looked at me, as if she could pierce through my layer of self-doubt and read the raw truth beneath. She stepped closer, casting a wary glance around us before speaking in a low voice. "You don't want to be dragged into this mess. Trust me." Her words were pointed, and yet the kindness in her eyes softened the edge of her warning. Before I could ask about the nature of the mess, Dr. Davenport's voice rose above the crowd, urgent yet assured as he called for an emergency response team. I watched helplessly as he examined the elderly man, whose breaths grew unsteady, and the sense of upheaval in the room tightened around me like a vice. The warm connection I'd felt with Dr. Davenport dimmed, overshadowed by the weight of the moment. The woman turned her gaze back to me, her voice steady despite the chaos. "This isn't just a medical situation. The hospital is under intense scrutiny, and you being here could become part of that scrutiny. I've seen it before. You don't want to be in the spotlight when it burns." I opened my mouth to protest but hesitated. An unsettling gnawing in my gut told me there was an urgency to her warning. Dr. Davenport's every movement was filled with focused precision, his brow knit in determination, yet the crowd was thickening, murmurs mixing into a cacophony of dread, skepticism, and fear. The weight of that pressure hung in the air, and I felt the room constrict around me. I began, but the woman's hand shot out, gripping my elbow with surprising strength. "Is this what you want?" To be caught up in a storm, I searched her eyes, looking for clarity. I had fought so hard to step into this world, to confront my fears and share a moment however fleeting with a man who had sparked something in me. But now, facing this unknown turbulence, I wasn't sure if I was strong enough. From behind us, I heard a familiar voice. It was Mia, weaving her way through the crowd, her worry etched across her face. She reached my side, her presence a small but solid anchor. "What's happening?" she asked, her eyes darting between me and the woman. "Something's wrong here," the woman stated, glancing back toward the unfolding scene, her jaw tightening. "There's a lot more at play than you realize." Dr. Davenport took a decisive step forward, no longer merely a doctor but a beacon of hope amidst a crisis, and I felt an overwhelming pull toward him. The compassion I had witnessed radiated from him, urging me to stay close. Yet, the woman's warning tugged violently at the lines of possibility I had just begun to forge. "What will you choose?" she asked, a challenging warmth emerging in her tone. "To stand at the precipice of someone else's storm or to step away while you still can?" The words struck a nerve, drawing me into the quicksand of my own self-doubts. I looked into Mia's concerned eyes, recognizing the steadfast support she had offered in my moments of hesitation. And yet, I recalled Dr. Davenport's genuine smile, the connection we shared, illuminated by hope and the faint glow of breaking out of my shell. Just then, my gaze caught Dr. Davenport looking back over his shoulder, his brow furrowing at the thrumming tension surrounding us. The electricity in the air crackled with promise, even as shadows gathered ominously. "Please," I urged, my voice barely a whisper as I faced the woman. "I need to know what's really happening." "What storm am I walking into?" She hesitated, her expression shifting as the hospital staff continued to circle around the elderly man, each moment fraught with critical urgency. "You've got to trust your instincts," she finally said, her grip loosening. "But know this, your life could change forever with one choice." A sudden wave of sorrow rolled through me as I realized I was standing at a crossroads. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting fleeting shadows against the walls, mimicking the internal battle raging on in my heart. And then, just as I opened my mouth to respond, a loud crash echoed through the corridor. There was the unmistakable sound of commotion erupting behind the closed doors at the end of the hallway, a muffled shout that sent a ripple of uncertainty through the gathering crowd. "What was that?" Mia gasped, the blood draining from her face, while panic began to flutter in my chest. Doctor Davenport's eyes widened, filled with a potent mix of concern and resolution as he took charge. "Stay close," he instructed, directing his focus to the chaos down the hall while the older woman stepped back, letting the looming uncertainty slink around us like a storm cloud refusing to disperse. My breath caught the mixture of fear and yearning hanging delicate in the air. What would happen when the dust settled, and who would be standing on the other side? The corridor quaked with uncertainty as the crowd began to shift restlessly, the tension snapping like a fraying rope. I felt the rush of adrenaline surge through my veins, a fierce desire to know what lay on the other side of that commotion. But rooted to the spot, I could only stand as chaos hummed under my skin and Mia held my hand tightly, her grip a lifeline. "What do you think happened?" she whispered, her voice tremulous with fear. I shook my head, unable to voice any possibilities. Doctor Davenport pulled his gaze away from the source of the chaos, searching the faces of those around him, his expression etched with determination. "Keep calm, everyone," he called out, but the whispers morphed into louder murmurs as anxiety escalated in the air. "I need everyone to stay back. We need space." In that moment, a nurse rushed past us, her movements frantic and urgent, keeping her eyes ahead as if avoiding the growing tide of uncertainty surrounding us. The intensity of the fear that had settled in my stomach pushed me into action. "Dr. Davenport!" I called, feeling an irrational need to bridge the distance between us, to hold on to the flickering hope he embodied. He turned slightly, his focus unwavering, yet I saw something flicker in his eyes, an acknowledgement of my plea, a tiny sign that he understood the weight of the situation bearing down on me. "Stay close," he shouted again, refocusing on the unfolding chaos, but for an instant, our eyes locked, and the connection we had forged felt palpable, almost tangible. Yet behind me, the older woman stood still, her presence a stark reminder of the weight of choice. I glanced back at her, expecting a signal, perhaps confirmation that I should heed her warning and step away. Instead, her profile had softened, a strange mix of empathy and urgency crossing her features. "This is the moment that will shape everything," she murmured, almost to herself. I felt a pang of frustration at her cryptic words, a longing for clarity amidst this tumult. I had opened a door only to have it slammed shut by circumstances beyond my control. "What do you mean?" I pressed, my voice sharper than intended, as if demanding answers would pull me away from the precipice of uncertainty. Before she could respond, the doors at the end of the hallway burst open, and a throng of medical staff poured out, chaos erupting as they attempted to manage whatever lay beyond. I glimpsed Momenta figure being wheeled away on a stretcher, faces of concerned nurses and doctors flooding past like a wave crashing over the shoreline. Panic gripped the crowd as urgency transformed the corridor into a maze of emotions, each heartbeat resonant with trepidation. The older woman turned her head, her determination morphing into something deeper as if she recognized that this was a tipping point, not just for me but for many. "Mia, we need to find out what's going on," I urged, despite the gnawing anxiety in my chest. The connection I felt to Dr. Davenport compelled me toward the unfolding situation. Every instinct screamed at me that this was where I was meant to be, yet the figure of the older woman stood resolute, watching me, as if waiting for my choice to cascade into motion. Mia nodded, her eyes bright with determination, and together we edged closer to the epicenter of chaos, the caution behind us peeling away. The crowd hummed with threads of fear and hope, evolving into a strange current that pulled us ahead, our resolve borrowed from those around us. As we approached, I caught a glimpse of the Stretch-era face turned towards the fluorescent lights, frail and pallid. My heart dropped as realization struck. It was someone from the hospital, a man I recognized from the waiting area. The very man who had been chatting with Dr. Davenport only moments ago, laughter still lingering as evidence that life could transform so suddenly, so cruelly. I felt Mia's grip slacken, confusion radiating from her as she tried to comprehend what had happened. "That can't be," she whispered, but whatever hope she had clung to now frayed, unraveling before us. Dr. Davenport's tone cut through the murmur of the crowd as he issued commands, his voice powerful despite the trembling undercurrents of uncertainty. "We need to stabilize him. Get me in 4 and the crash cart." As he moved into action, sheer determination took over, and I realized how deeply this affected him beyond just a professional obligation. This was personal. It dawned on me that even amidst the chaos, this was the moment I had to choose between fear and courage. I took a step forward, urging my feet to move even as shock threatened to freeze me. "I want to help," I breathed, though in truth I wasn't certain how I could. Suddenly, the older woman appeared beside us, her presence unwavering. "You're stronger than you know," she whispered, a flicker of warmth emerging in her voice. "You have the chance to be part of something significant." Her words ignited a spark within me. I may have felt overwhelmed, unprepared for this tumultuous path, but there was no retreating. I could lend my strength to help somehow, anything to brush against the ripple of healing that unfolded before me, but just as resolve shone in my heart, an ear-splitting commotion erupted from the same direction the stretcher had come. The crowd gasped, eyes darting toward the source of the chaos, their collective breath held in anticipation. "What now?" Mia exclaimed, dread lacing her voice. Then, the unmistakable sound of sirens pierced through the cacophony, growing louder, heralding a wave of new urgency. And with it, a realization struck me: his was only the beginning of the storm that would engulf us all. The moment the sirens punctured the air, the corridor transformed into a surreal blend of chaos and desperation. I felt the world around me blur as my gaze locked onto the chaotic scene. Medical professionals moving like a finely tuned machine, yet each face wore the mark of those who understood the weight of life hanging by a thread. "Stay here," I said to Mia, squeezing her hand one last time before disconnecting from our fragile thread. I stepped forward, heart pounding, life echoing the heartbeat of the frantic corridor around me. The older woman had melted back into the shadows, but her encouragement lingered like a soft glow in my mind. Dr. Davenport's voice guided me closer to the action, his authoritative presence demanding respect from everyone in the vicinity. The stretcher rolled into the adjacent treatment room, and without thinking, I followed the team inside. What could I offer? I was just a spectator drawn unwillingly into this disaster. Yet, the air crackled with a desperate need for anyone willing to step forward. As I entered, I caught sight of Dr. Davenport working diligently over the patient, whose pallor seemed to suck the very life from the room. The frantic beeping of monitors created a rhythm of urgency that vibrated within my chest. For the first time, I could really see him. The man I had admired from afar, powerful yet human, caught in the throes of drama that could easily unravel everything he held dear. A nurse spotted me standing frozen in the doorway. "Here," she snapped, motioning toward the supply table. "We need more gauze. And can you grab me that sterile saline?" In a daze, I nodded and rushed over. The moment I touched the cool plastic of the saline bag, something inside me stirred a fierce desire to contribute to this fight for life. As I worked, I overheard snippets of whispered concerns, fragments of conversations that hung in the air like a thick fog. "His vitals are crashing, we're losing him." With every word, my heart sank deeper, an anchor of dread pulling me into the depths of despair. Yet in that moment, a nurse caught my eye and offered a reassuring smile, a small flicker of hope amidst the terror. "You're doing great. Keep it up." It was as if she had sensed my wavering courage, brightly illuminating the path forward through her kindness. As I returned to Dr. Davenport's side with the saline, our eyes met again, a connection laden with unspoken words. "You're a brave one," he acknowledged, his breath coming fast. "Stay ready, every moment counts." But just then, a loud crash reverberated from the corridor, disrupting the fragile erection of resolve we had constructed in that room. The door burst open, and a paramedic stumbled in, disheveled and breathless. "We've got another emergency. Multiple casualties, motor vehicle accident outside." The air thickened with dread. "No, not now," Dr. Davenport muttered under his breath, his jaw clenching as he shifted back to the patient on the table. I felt my heart pick up speed, awareness dawning with horrifying clarity. This was slowly spiraling beyond our grasp. The nurse beside me shouted orders into the chaos. "We need more staff. Everyone, listen up. Clear the way." There was no time to think, let alone process the implications of all that was unfolding. Outside these walls, lives hung in the balance, begging for our help, while inside, we fought to uphold our fragile bit of hope. Just then, Mia's voice sliced through the mayhem. "I can help." She burst in through the doorway, and my heart lurched at the sight of her determination. Relief washed over me. Had come to stand by my side. "Mia, it's dangerous." I exclaimed, torn between wanting to protect her and the strength I felt from her resolve. Please, she insisted, stepping forward. Let me be of use. Her determination resonated within me, kindling the strength I thought had waned. I motioned toward the tables set up in the room, where swaths of gauze lay discarded, waiting for purpose. As the chaos continued, I watched as Mia without hesitation began organizing supplies, her movements fluid and instinctive. I felt myself thawing, as if her bravery ignited a fire I hadn't known I possessed. Perhaps, in this madness, we were not just spectators but participants on the cusp of something profound, but just as I began to feel a glimmer of hope, another loud crash reverberated down the hall, this time accompanied by the frantic cries of more medical personnel rushing in. We need everyone's strength. The implications were dire. Our resources were limited, and we were about to be overwhelmed. My heart raced as I turned back to Dr. Davenport. He had become the beacon guiding me through this storm, but in that moment, I saw shadows flicker across his face, a hint that even he, the unfaltering hero, was grappling with fear. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a flash of light in the cascading darkness. I hesitated before pulling it out, unable to process the sheer volume of turmoil swirling around us. But when I glanced down, my heart dropped. An unexpected message flashed on the screen. We need to talk. Meet me in the lobby now. It's urgent. Alex, the tension in my chest spiraled higher as panic laced through me. Should I leave? Could I abandon the chaos unfolding before us? This was far from over, and I instinctively felt an undeniable pull, the sense that whatever awaited me there could irrevocably change everything. The clamorous chaos of the hospital buzzed around me like a swarm of angry bees, stinging with the intensity of countless lives colliding in an unpredictable storm. Each sound amplified the urgency within me, clamoring for my attention. I felt suffocated by the sheer weight of the moment, torn between the unyielding desire to assist in whatever small way I could and the relentless pull of the message that glowed ominously on my phone. Mia, I said, the air catching in my throat as I turned to face her, needing to convey the internal struggle washing over me. I have to go, she interrupted, her eyes locking onto mine with a fierce intensity that ignited my courage. You need to see what this is about. I'll be right here, helping. You're not abandoning me, you're just stepping out to take care of something important. Her words tethered me to the present, simultaneously inviting me out of the cacophony of uncertainty yet anchoring me firmly to the fragile teen we had become. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I nodded, resolving to trust her. Be careful. Please, I implored, brushing my fingers across her arm before letting the comfort of her warmth slip away. With a heavy heart, I retreated from the operating room, propelled forward by a mix of anxiety and determination. The corridor spooled before me like an endless stretch of dark invitation, fraught with the possibility of relief or further heartbreak. As I passed medical staff rushing past, a blur of purpose, I could practically hear the whispered hopes and fears that cloaked their every movement. Reaching the lobby felt like stepping through an invisible veil, where the ambient noise of chaos fell quiet, replaced by a haunting stillness that loomed over the space. Alex stood near the entrance, his expression unreadable, punctuated by unease and urgency. The frantic movements of the hospital faded behind us, replaced by a cocoon of shared tension. What is it? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. The uncertainty nodded me. If I had come here, was it to receive shocking news or simply for comfort that would dissolve as swiftly as it had appeared? He took a deep breath, the air tremoring in the silence. I needed to talk about your mother. My heart plummeted. The mention of her sent shivers down my spine, reminding me of countless nights filled with worry, the lingering darkness threatening to engulf us both as she battled her own demons. What about her? I pressed, dread tightening around my chest. She's been admitted earlier today. I didn't want to overwhelm you in the moment, but she was found. He hesitated, gathering his breath like fallen leaves as he stared down at his hands. She was found unconscious. They're running tests now. Ice flooded my veins. Unconscious? The word echoed in my mind, uttering a cruel invitation to my worst fears. Is she going to be okay? I don't know, he replied softly. But I thought you should hear it from me. I wanted you to know. You deserve to be informed. The gravity of his words sunk deep, creating a rift in my fragile wall of composure. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I felt a bitterness creep in, the familiarity of resentment creeping back, a well-worn comfort in the midst of an unfolding horror. I thought maybe you could focus on what you were doing with Mia. You needed to stay where you were, in that moment. His honesty hit me, unfiltered, as he stepped closer. "But I can't stand idle while you might be losing." "Stop," I interrupted, my voice rising as panic bubbled over. "I can't." The thought of losing her swallowed me whole, drowning out reason in clarity. I pressed a shaking hand against my forehead, desperate to stave off the torrent of emotions cresting like a tsunami inside me. In a moment of unexpected intimacy, Alex's hand found mine, grounding me even as I threatened to fade away into despair. "Listen to me, please," he urged gently. "You need to go back. Be with Mia, with Dr. Davenport. He'll handle everything here." His earnest gaze pierced through the fog, stirring something dormant within the tiniest ember of resilience ignited by the weight of my fears. "I can't," I whispered, wrestling with the flood of thoughts warring in my mind, yet there was an unexpected kindness in his grip, the urgency of his concern wrapping around my heart like a warm embrace. I had always bristled against vulnerability, yet here I stood, afraid yet emboldened by the fragile care of someone who understood more than he let on. "Promise me," he implored, eyes softening with a kindred understanding, "promise me you won't abandon her. You still have a chance to make a difference just like you did in there." Just as I was about to respond, the overhead lights flickered, a harbinger of the impending storm brewing outside, the air thickening with tension. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the entrance, another wave of staff and paramedics rushing in, this time with accompanied cries echoing through the lobby. Panic bubbled again within me, a cruel reminder that time was not on our side, that life's fragile thread could be severed by a moment's hesitation. I drew in a sharp breath, and with an instinctive yearning, I turned to Alex and whispered desperately, "I need to go help Mia. I need to be there." He nodded, understanding crackling between us. "Go. He'll keep an eye on your mother and find you if there's any news." His words kindled a fragile thread of hope, urging me onward as I fought against the tide rising within. With a hesitant step backward, I turned to make my way back into the tumultuous heart of the hospital, a duality intertwining my existence, one foot grounded in urgency for my family and another fighting to lend my strength to those fighting for life. But as I pushed through the thrumming doors, a gut-wrenching realization washed over me, clarity slicing through the haze: nothing would ever be the same. And in that moment, the depth of my battle had shifted, unfolding a new layer of conflict that threatened to engulf every decision I would make from here on. A voice laced with urgency called from behind me. "Wait." I twisted around, heart racing, only to find Alex rushing to catch up to me, his expression now shadowed by something more. Before I could process the rush of emotions, he spoke with an intensity that exploded between us. "There's one more thing about your mother. I think." His words faltered as if they bore the weight of something unfathomable. My breath hung in the air, a suspended silence, laden with fear, seeking to uncover the shattering truth that lay just ahead, threatening everything I held dear. The fluorescent lights of the hospital flickered like faint stars struggling to penetrate a murky night. My heart raced, caught in a turbulent whirlwind of emotions as I waited for Alex to unravel the unspoken truth hanging in the air between you, so heavy, electric, and ominous. "Alex, what is it?" My voice trembled with urgency, and I stepped closer, curbing the static around us, desperate for clarity. "What do you know about her? Is she—" Each syllable weighed down by fear, threatening to bury me alive beneath the rubble of unasked questions. He took a steadying breath, his face split between resolve and hesitation. "I think you should prepare yourself, and not just for the news of her condition." The flicker of vulnerability in his eyes prompted the air between us to tighten. "I overheard some conversations while I was waiting for you. There's concern about her health, but also about something else." My stomach twisted, tightening around my very core. "Something else? What do you mean?" The grief I had started to wrestle with shifted into a different kind of anguish as I awaited the penny to drop. "Your mother, she might have been involved in something illegal," he said, words tumbling out in rapid succession, as if to stave off the flood of emotion surging between us. "I heard them mention something about debts and gambling rings." I didn't want to believe it, but it seems to go deeper than we thought. Sinking from the weight of his revelation, my world began to shatter like glass. "No, that can't be true." My heart clawed at my throat. "She wouldn't get herself involved in something like that. She's always tried her best." Each memory of warm embraces and laughter ricocheted in my mind, now tainted with betrayal. "I know," Alex said softly, stepping closer, his hand brushing against mine briefly. "But what if this is why she fell unconscious? Stress? Pressure?" This could be a breaking point, and she might need us both, not just to fight for her recovery but also to help her face whatever demon she is dealing with. He was right. I could almost feel the palpable weight of her struggles. She had fought so many battles, never allowing our lives to unravel in front of me. Perhaps what I thought were moments of her unfathomable strength had only masked a darker truth. I can't believe this. My breath quickened. If that's true, how can I help her? How do I get through to her? The thought clotted me, twisting almost violently within, begging for a plan or some semblance of a solution. It starts with being there for her, Alex urged, his voice keeping me tethered to reality amidst the whirlwind of thoughts threatening to spiral away. You're her anchor, and sometimes the hardest part is acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. Hope seemed to flutter like a reluctant bird within me. Perhaps, in the depths of these challenges, there lay a path I hadn't yet seen, one that could guide my mother through her pain, confusion, and shame. If she is in this deep, I can't just walk away. I need her to know that I'm not ashamed. In that moment, Alex's eyes softened, and I could feel a flicker of support, a glimmer of understanding shimmering through the crevices of our shared fears. Together, he said, a promise whispered into the tension-filled air. We'll figure it out together. But just as we seemed to find a momentary refuge from the emotional storm, a shrill alarm blared through the corridor, cutting through the echoes of our hearts. Instinctively, we turned as one, stealing glances down the hall lined with nurses rushing in a frantic rhythm, the air thickening with the weight of urgency. What's happening? My heart raced as a knot of dread formed in my gut. A doctor raced past with a frantic look. The echoes of panic began to ripple through the lobby like a swift current. With brisk, measured steps, Alex moved closer, urgency seeping into his expression as he pulled out his phone. I need to see if there's any news from your mother. Stay here. I nodded, but as I opened my mouth to speak, the trembling urgency pooled in my stomach, urging me forward. I couldn't stand. Still not now. I want to go with you, I insisted, falling into step beside him, galvanized by the fear coursing through me. If something is wrong, I need to know. I can't just wait. As we turned toward the end of the corridor, the air felt electric, charged with a sense of foreboding. I could see the blue scrubs of nurses moving with precision into a waiting room, whispers just barely reaching my ears. Unstable, possible cardiac arrest, and then a final gasp, we have to stabilize her. My breath stalled in my throat. Alex glanced at me, eyes wide with fear, and I realized that an enveloping darkness had settled along the path before us, a darkness that threatened to shatter the last remnants of my hope. This is it, he said softly, we can't lose her, not after everything. But there, in the surge of profound emotion swirling around us, I couldn't shake a deep sense of impending dread closing in, whispering fears of loss that felt almost tangible. Just as we reached the threshold of the waiting room, a single thought cascaded through my mind. Beneath the weight of my mother's secrets lay the truth of a life straddling the line between existence and oblivion. Suddenly, an unexpected voice echoed from behind. Wait. Don't go in there just yet. It was a nurse, her face pale and flushed with urgency, eyes darting back toward the chaos hidden beneath the doors of the room. As I halted, heart pounding, that moment crystallized, a cliffhanger born of misunderstanding and mounting fear. Something was terribly wrong, and whatever lay beyond the steel doors held the key to everything I both longed for and feared most. The fluorescent lights of the hospital remained a stark reminder of the harsh reality around us. I could feel the cold tiles beneath my feet, the weight of uncertainties pressing down on my shoulders like a heavy shroud. The nurse's urgent voice pulled me back, but all I could see were shadows looming in the periphery of my mind. Please, we need to wait here for a moment, she insisted, her tone brisk yet compassionate. Her hands were clasped tightly, revealing a subtle tremor as she glanced back at the awaiting chaos behind the door. They're trying to stabilize her. It's critical. No, I can't wait. I need to see her. I argued, panic surging like a tide within me. My heart raced with a desperate thrum, seeking reassurance in the midst of escalating fears. I clutched Alex's arm as if anchoring myself to a lifeline. Just a few more seconds, the nurse urged, her voice thick with the tremors of suppressed emotion. You'll want to hear everything clearly when they come out. Her sincerity broke through the clamor in my spirit, yet the unease clung like static. Mom, I whispered, my voice falling into the quiet expanse, a prayer laced with frantic hope. Please be okay. Alex squeezed my hand, grounding me in an unsettling reality where the universe felt simultaneously vast and constricting. Yet even in my turmoil, I saw the concern etched on his face, a mixture of fears shared, and a solid determination to face whatever lay ahead together. Time stretched awkwardly between us, seconds dissolving into minutes that felt like a lifetime. When the door finally swung open, hope and dread collided in a cyclone of emotions, and a doctor emerged, her expression a tangled weave of urgency and tempered control. Family of Maria Carter? She called out, and my heart stopped. Every breath I had been holding rushed out in a disarray of possibilities. I stepped forward, my voice barely a whisper as I called out, "Yes, I'm her daughter." The doctor approached, her gaze scanning between my face and that of Alex. "We've stabilized her heart rate, but she's in very critical condition," she began, her words laden with a fragile gravity. "There may be complications due to what we've found in her medical history." "What do you mean?" I demanded, hope battling despair in my chest. "Are you saying this isn't just about her health? There are indications of severe stress and possibly substance dependencies that we have to assess. We need to know if there are other underlying issues that may be affecting her," she explained, and as every syllable fell from her lips, my world began to fracture further into chaos. No. The word escaped me like a gasp, my fear morphing into a suffocating knot. I had been so absorbed in the idea of her debts, her secrets, that I hadn't fathomed this deeper plunge into darkness. "She would never." "She didn't ask for help," Alex interjected, his voice strong next to my rising despair. "But we can help her. We need to right now." "She needs time," the doctor replied, her demeanor still rigid with professional distance, though her eyes reflected empathy. "I suggest you prepare yourself. She'll need your support for what's to come." "What's to come?" I echoed, a pit forming in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "Your mother is going to have to face these realities, and she will need both of you to help her through it. Whether she'll choose to fight or succumb to the darkness is entirely up to her," the doctor elaborated, and just like that, the world spun anew. The weight of choices, the burden of truth. As the doctor turned to leave, I clenched my fists, caught in a tempest of emotions that brought me to the brink of tears. "We can't lose her." "Not now," I said, desperation threading through my voice. Just then, an older woman stepped forward, a nurse with silver hair and calming eyes. "I know this is overwhelming, but can I share something with you?" she asked, her calm presence piercing through the storm. I nodded, willing to grasp at any shred of hope she would offer. "She was asking for you, specifically," the nurse said, her voice a soothing balm to my frayed edges. "Even in her unconscious state, she holds on to the love she has for both of you. You are her hope, her anchor." And as her words settled, weaving a thread of comfort into the frayed fabric of my despair, I clung to that glimmer of light. It was not a solution, not yet, but it opened a path amid the darkness, a reminder that even in our fractured realities, love could sometimes illuminate the way forward. However, just as I began to let my heart soften around that flicker of hope, the weight of my mother's secrets lurked still at the edges of my mind, awaiting the moment to crash down once more. The sense of urgency and despair twisted tighter around me, and I knew this was just the beginning. Then came the shocking revelation. I overheard her speaking about someone, the silver-haired nurse added quietly, a hesitant glance exchanged with the doctor before she spoke again. "A man named Victor. He was very insistent on helping her with her problems, but it sounds like he might be much more dangerous than you realize." My heart raced, confusion clashing with a chill that raced down my spine. Who was Victor, and why had my mother kept him a secret? As the shadows lengthened around us, I realized the fabric of our struggle had become even more complex, and now I had one more battle to engage in. The tangled web of her choices, new and unforeseen, entangling us all in its grasp. "Wait," I said, fear threatening to choke me again. "What do you mean by dangerous?" The fluorescent lights flickered, casting uneasy shadows on the walls of the waiting area. My heart pounded wildly, each beat whispering words I couldn't quite voice. Alex stood beside me, his hand warm in mine, grounding me amidst the storm that raged within. The nurse's words clung to me like fog, blurring the clarity I desperately sought. "Victor," I murmured, the name falling heavy from my lips like a stone. What kind of man had ensnared my mother in whatever situation had led her here? In a moment of clarity, I felt angry, and sadness bubbled just beneath the surface. It was a mixture of fear and guilt. I had been blindsided by my concerns, too wrapped up in my own struggles to see the hidden depths of hers. "We need to find out more about him," Alex stated, his resolve colliding with my fear. I nodded, swallowing hard against the tightness in my throat, feeling a flicker of courage infused by his steadfast presence. There was warmth in his voice, strength that reminded me it wasn't just me anymore, that we were now intertwined in this fight for her life together. Before I could respond, the doctor re-entered the space, her face grim. I have news regarding your mother. I'm afraid we need to move her into a more extensive evaluation room. Strap her to monitors while we prepare treatment. My chest tightened at the thought of her there alone, navigating an invisible battlefield without us. Can we see her first? I implored, desperation clotting the words together. She hesitated, her eyes softening. Just a moment, but I can only allow one of you, she warned gently, as if sensing the stir of hope. Without hesitation, I squeezed Alex's hand before facing the doctor. Let me go. I need to tell her I'm here. As I stepped forward, I could almost hear the whispers of urgency in the air around me. I followed the doctor down the fluorescent-lit corridor, dread pooling in my stomach. Each step felt slower than the last, time stretching in a way that made it hard to breathe. Finally, we stopped at a door marked with my mother's name. You have a few minutes, the doctor said quietly, opening the door to reveal a room filled with beeping machines and sterile smells. My mother lay on the bed, her body dwarfed by the medical apparatus surrounding her. The steady rhythm of the monitors provided a cadence to my racing thoughts. I hesitated at the threshold, and for a moment, I was caught in the paradox of emotions: relief to see her, yet horror to absorb the full weight of her condition. Mom? I dared to speak, stepping further into the room. Her eyelids fluttered, and I hurried to her side, grasping her limp hand. It's me, it's Sarah. I'm right here. She stirred slightly, a faint moan escaping her lips. Her eyes finally cracked open to reveal a slip of recognition, followed by sea-green depths marred with confusion. Sarah? She croaked, her voice barely above a whisper but filled with an inherent fragility that threatened to shatter my heart. I am here, I love you, I hurried to say, my chest tightening as I fought back tears. Just focus on getting better. Every fiber of my being longed for her to wrap me in her familiar warmth as she once did. The hospital's coldness, the sterile air, made it difficult to reconcile the space between us, but as she blinked at me, a flicker of recognition turned to a veil of panic. I can't. Her words trembled, and I felt a weight pressing down, a mother's deep-seated fears spilling over into her reality, the fears I had dismissed in my worry for her health. Mom, please, you're safe here. You'll be okay, I implored, squeezing her hand tighter. You're strong. You can fight this. Her gaze darted away from mine, a flash of something dark clouding her eyes. I tried, Sarah. But Victor, the name came out like a jagged breath, and I couldn't help but feel the chill wrap around my spine again. Who is he? Please, tell me. I urged, desperate for clarity, frantically searching her eyes for an answer. The one who didn't let me go, she mumbled, then her face twisted in pain as she drew in a shaky breath. He thinks he can save me, save you from. What? My voice broke, desperation lacing every note as I leaned closer, gripping her hand tighter. Mom, please just tell me what's happening, but the frailty of her condition overshadowed her resolve. I don't know, she breathed finally, her gaze drifting as if the shadows of her past loomed larger than the present. You must trust yourself. The tremor in her voice frightened me, but it was the look in her eyes, a pure, unfiltered vulnerability that sent me spiraling deeper into fear. She was slipping away from me, drowning in an ocean of despair I couldn't navigate. Just as I steeled myself to further probe, the doctor's voice pierced through, calling for me again, and I turned to see the look of urgency crumple her features. I'm sorry, but we need you to step back now. It's time to start the procedure. My heart sank. I didn't want to leave her. Not now, Mom. I cried, but the doctor was escorting me back to the waiting area. There's so much more she needs to face, the doctor murmured as the door clicked shut behind me. I stumbled back against the harsh tiles, tears stinging my eyes as Alex grasped my shoulders. What did she say? He asked carefully, tension thick in the air. She said. I tried to articulate, but my voice trembled, cracking under the weight of my fears. Victor, he thinks he can save her. A moment stretched between us, heavy with the weight of unspoken fears. The nurse's gentle words echoed in my mind, urging me to hold on to hope. Just then, the doctor re-entered, but she was not alone. I felt the air thicken again, and as I focused on the entrance, the shock hit me like a wave. There standing beside her was a man in a tailored suit, slick dark hair framing an angular face, and eyes sharper than any knife I had ever seen. It was Victor. Understanding crashed over me like a tidal wave, as I grasped the weight of this unexpected revelation. My mother's world, the one built on secrets and shadows, was flooding into my reality. Everything I thought I knew began to unravel, and deep in my gut, a chilling awareness settled. He was not just dangerous, was entangled in a way I never expected, and a confrontation loomed just on the horizon. The corridor felt like a vacuum as I stood there, a living testament to the storm that had shifted my entire world in a matter of days. My mother was fighting for her life, and now Victor, my mother's secret, her shadow stood towering over the fragile light of hope that flickered within me. His presence was commanding, leaching warmth from the room simply through the air of neglect that seemed to follow him. Anxiety gripped me like a vice, my heart a wild flutter echoing against the walls of fear and uncertainty that had encapsulated my life. I wanted to lash out against this symbol of all that threatened to pull my family apart, to fight back against the unknown that only served to deepen the cracks festering within our lives. I blinked, steeling my resolve as his gaze swept over me, assessing, weighing my worth. A knot of worry twisted tight in my gut, but I wasn't going to let him take any more from us. I couldn't afford to let this man intimidate me into silence any longer. "So, you're Victor," I said, my voice shaking but resolute, resistant to the fear gnawing at me. "What do you want from my mother?" He turned his attention to me, an enigmatic smile curling his lips, yet it felt sinister. "Ah, the devoted daughter. Maria speaks of you often." An icy shiver ran down my spine at the thought of my mother's clandestine conversations with this man, a man whose very name echoed with threat and darkness. "What's going on with her?" I asked again, more forcefully. "What have you done to her?" "Done? No, sweet Sarah, I've merely been a guide in her time of need. She fulfills her own destinies, deals with her demons as best she can." The way he spoke made it feel as if he was painting a canvas of manipulation, each word carefully chosen to trap me in my thoughts. I swallowed hard, anger fueling my hunger for the truth. "But she is sick. She needs help. You're not helping, you're dragging her further down." Victor's eyes narrowed, amusement glinting beneath the surface. "Her decisions are her own, dear. I simply opened the door for her." An unsettling realization clawed at my heart. My mother was entangled in something far deeper than I had ever realized, her own choices entwined with the sinister whispers of this man who seemed to thrive on uncertainty. But she had tried so hard to shield me from those demons. Why had she felt the need to hide Victor from me? And then it hit me, a realization that electrified the air between us. Victor had preyed upon her vulnerabilities, twisted her mind until she felt trapped, drowning in a life she didn't choose for herself. "Why are you here?" I pressed, a sudden surge of determination coursing through me. "What do you want from my mother? Why couldn't you just leave her alone?" The corners of his mouth turned up slightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "All I ever wanted was to help her find the peace she so desperately fears. Perhaps, to light a path that others cannot see. But at what cost?" I spat back, my heart rallying against the hypocrisy oozing from his words. I felt Alex's reassuring hand on my back as he positioned himself at my side, offering me strength when it felt like the walls were closing in. Victor's gaze flickered to Alex, his expression shifting imperceptibly. "Someone who opposes what she desires. Fascinating." That was all it took. In an instant, I could feel the tension crackle like static electricity, an impending storm brewing between us. "You would do well to leave her alone. It's obvious she's fighting for her life against the things you've created. If you care anything for her at all, you will let her heal." "I'm not her enemy," Victor replied, his voice smooth and cold. "But in her eyes, I hold a mirror. Whether she chooses to embrace or shatter that mirror is entirely up to her." I stood frozen, grappling with the painful truth. My mother hadn't simply stumbled into this darkness, she had allowed it to intertwine with her life. "You want her broken, don't you? You want her dependent on you." Behind me, the nurse gestured for the doctor to step forward, a thick silence threading through the air like shards of glass. "We really must get your mother prepared for treatment. Leave her alone," I shouted, panic erupting within me. "She doesn't need you. You have no business in her life." Victor smirked, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. "This is just a game, dear. Survival isn't fighting back against the darkness, it's learning to navigate it. As he stepped closer, I felt his cold breath invade the warmth we fought to maintain. Remember, everyone has a choice. I'll be waiting. And with that, he turned, melting back into the shadows, leaving behind a charged atmosphere of fear and retribution. None of this felt real. It was as if a page had been torn from my story, plunging me headfirst into a ravenous chaos. The doctor spoke softly, concern etched across her face. Well, make sure she gets the right help. But we have to move fast. The sooner we can stabilize her emotional state alongside her physical state, the better. As I looked at Alex, the warmth that always flourished between us ignited a small glow of hope. If we fight together, he nodded, eyes fierce with determination. Together. We'll face this storm head on. And so we stepped into the unknown, gathering our strength alongside the threads of resilience that would carry us through. But just as our resolve began to fortify my spirit, a piercing cry echoed through the corridor, followed by a surge of panic that swept over the medical staff like wildfire. The beeping of machines crescendoed, urgency spilling into the air as we turned, hearts pounding. Now that's happening? My voice quaked as the nurse rushed past, her urgency setting alarms ablaze within me. Stay back. And before I could process the implications, she disappeared behind doors, a new wave of dread crashing into our fragile shell of hope. Yet with Alex at my side, I could feel something brewing within me, a call to fight against the flow of helplessness swirling like a tempest, igniting a small flicker of light in the chaos. I took a deep breath, realizing then that the fight wouldn't just be for my mother's recovery, it would be a fight for healing, acceptance, and an unbreakable bond forged under pressure. But I needed to hold on to that flickering hope, one that had emerged against the backdrop of despair. Suddenly, everything crystallized as we broke through the chaos, emotions and fears crashing into each other magnificently, melding together into a new truth. And that truth echoed resoundingly in the depths of my heart. Sometimes the hardest battles forge the strongest souls. With Alex by my side, I stepped forward into the unfolding storm, ready to embrace the light of hope and the power of resilience that would come to define our journey, the journey back to life after a moment that threatened to swallow us whole. And so, I resolved to stand tall, knowing that amidst the darkness, love would always rise no matter the storm it had to weather. Because after all, even in the strongest storms, a single ray of light could pierce through the darkest skies. And as I whispered a silent promise to my mother, the battlefield transformed around me. I felt courageous enough to say it aloud, letting my voice resonate through shadows. We will find a way back to each other. No matter what it takes. I vowed, underscoring that the journey was only beginning, a heart full of hope ready to rewrite the narrative that had once seemed unshakable. Each moment was precious, and together, we would emerge from the darkness, rising toward the light with every ounce of fight still left inside us. That was the promise we would uphold as we forged into the unknown. After all, we had discovered an undeniable truth: sometimes change was born from chaos, but with courage and love, hope could flourish. And it was that hope that would carry us forward, guiding the way for the healing yet to come, until the light finally broke free once more. Together, I whispered to the world, surrendering to the belief that we would rewrite our story, brush past the shadows, and emerge woven into a new tapestry of connection and resilience we would carry forward. Together.